Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of Mocktail Minutes. This is Bailey.
And this is Brianna.
This week I'm drinking, so we have like a local wellness cafe and they make their own juices. So I got their wellness blend. It has orange, carrot, green apple, lime, and ginger. It's actually really good. Usually I don't like ginger ones.
Oh yeah, ginger. I like overdosed on it when I was pregnant. Blech. I'm doing an Unwell. Was it you that had one of these?
Yeah,
Okay.
I actually just bought another one.
Yeah, I'm doing the watermelon one. Surprise. It's okay. It's not my favorite watermelon thing, but it's pretty good. I like these.
I was debating on that one, but I was like, I did. There's like a coconut something. It's an orange can. That's the Unwell one I did. I'll do that next week.
Oh, that sounds good. But these ones have a good amount of electrolytes, so
I like them. So far, all the Unwell brands that I've tried have been good. And they have, I didn't know they had the Unwell protein, like the clear protein.
oh, I didn't either.
It's in a can too.
I'll have to try that. Yeah. This is the energy one. I don't know if the one you got was energy.
Yes,
Okay.
it's just an energy one.
Yeah, I'm gonna look for the protein ones at Sprouts.
I found them at Target. That's where I got mine.
Well, I go there enough too, so
Yes. Well, this week we're talking about everyone's favorite topic. But we thought it'd be really important to dive into because we are weight loss dietitians. But we're going to talk about like why your doctor keeps telling you to lose weight. And if you do have excess weight or know you need to lose weight, you've probably heard this a million times and you're like, I get it. Like
yeah.
my doctor keeps telling me to lose weight, so this will happen. But we want to give you a deeper understanding as to why are they telling you this? Why do they just keep telling you to lose weight and everything? Because I feel like that's where the story often ends for many people is go lose weight. Just go lose weight. And we don't, A, they aren't given the explanation. B, they aren't given the tools or the resources.
And it feels a little like just like an easy blanket thing, right? Like, oh, well, okay, go lose weight and then all these will be healthier. But for a lot of people that have like metabolic dysfunction, I feel like it's a little bit harder because you have excess weight or because you're having like other, metabolic issues. So it feels just a little bit like defeating, because most people go to the doctor because they're like, I'm having a hard time losing weight. I'm like, well, just
Yeah,
lose weight.
that's true. Like, well, your answer, I know you came here because you need to lose weight, but so yeah, you need to lose
So
weight.
yeah, just lose weight. He was like, okay, cool.
But we want to explain, we've kind of talked about a little bit like body positivity. Like, we're not saying you have to be part of skinny talk or whatever you want to call it. The fact of the matter is, excess fat does lead to different diseases. It leads to poor health outcomes. Like, that is a fact. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be at the ideal body weight that these equations calculate, where it's like, oh, I'm actually above my ideal body weight.
Yeah.
And I have a great metabolic health. So we're not saying that you have to necessarily be there, but factually, having excess fat does contribute to a few different things. So first up, like your metabolic health and insulin resistance. When you have excess weight, so you have fat cells that enlarge and they become a little dysfunctional. So they store more triglycerides than they're designed to hold. They start releasing free fatty acids into circulation and fat begins depositing in your liver and muscle. So this actually interferes with your insulin signaling pathways. So when we think about this, insulin should be binding to your cell receptor. The cells should open so glucose can get in. With insulin resistance, that signaling is blocked or it's resistant. And so glucose stays in the bloodstream for longer, and that's what causes us to have higher blood sugars. The pancreas then compensates by adding more insulin, which is what adds to insulin resistance because we're producing more than what we should need. So over time, that blood glucose rises, your pancreatic beta cells fatigue a little bit. We get prediabetes, and that can develop into type 2 diabetes. So when you lose weight, this is shrinking your fat cells. It reduces free fatty acids, like kind of like spillover, and it decreases that liver and muscle fat. So then you have improved insulin sensitivity, you have that lower fasting insulin, and you have better glucose uptake. So Insulin sensitivity can improve within weeks of just modest weight loss, even before you have like large scale changes.
And this is also why, like, when we're thinking about insulin resistance, we'll look at triglycerides because if you have high triglycerides floating around, we know, okay, this is what's happening. So sometimes if you're like, well, I don't know, my insulin resistance didn't really get that much better, but my triglycerides went really down. Okay, then you're still in the right direction. Like this.
Going in the right direction, yeah.
The other thing is visceral fat and organ function. So, visceral fat, we've done an episode on this. This is like the unhealthy fat, the really highly inflammatory fat, sits in the abdominal cavity and it can be around like the liver, the pancreas, intestines, kidneys. So, this is the one that's really highly metabolically active. That's different than subcutaneous fat or the fat that you can like maybe pinch, whatever. This is one that's it's harmful. So, it drains directly into the portal vein, which goes straight into the liver. So this exposes the liver to free fatty acids, inflammatory cytokines, endotoxins. And this is, we also did an episode on this, something that drives like fatty liver disease, increased triglyceride production, your VLDL or like your little precursor to your like lousy cholesterol, it starts to be overproduced. And then you have elevated ApoB particles in the blood, and it's going to interfere with pancreatic beta cell production. So again, insulin production and your insulin working well. So when we lose weight, or especially if you have a lot of excess weight to lose, you start to reduce visceral fat. And visceral fat actually is gained and lost pretty easily in people that have a lot of it. So just that little bit of reduction in visceral fat is going to improve hepatic insulin sensitivity. It's going to lower liver fat percentage, reduce triglycerides, improve cholesterol. So like I said, it's usually lost earlier than subcutaneous fat, which is why your metabolic markers improve. This is another reason why it's like, okay, even if you feel like, oh, I only lost 2 pounds or I only lost 4 pounds, okay, that could actually be really significant in terms of visceral fat lost. So don't discredit it. Follow your labs.
I feel like this episode is kind of like bringing together a lot of our previous episodes too.
Mm-hmm.
Because the next thing, like chronic inflammation, so that adipose tissue is immunologically active.
Mm-hmm.
And as fat mass increases, we have what's called macrophages that infiltrate your fat tissue. Hypoxia occurs inside enlarged fat cells, and cells will release those inflammatory cytokines. So this is where like CRP, that is a common one we look at. Interleukin 6, I would say, is another one, or IL-6 that is more common, but there's like also TNF alpha or MCP1. Those are other key markers that can be elevated, and this is what creates low-grade chronic inflammation. And so that inflammation is what contributes to atherosclerosis, insulin resistance, neurodegeneration, and even it kind of flourishes tumor growth environments. So fat loss reduces that infiltration, it reduces that cytokine production, and it reduces just oxidative stress on the body. So CRP alone can actually drop significantly with a 10% weight reduction. This is again where sometimes we discredit, like if you are 185 pounds and you're like, okay, I would like to see some difference. 18-pound difference can actually drop your CRP levels, aka showing that you have dropped your inflammation.
Yeah. And that's a big one. The CRP is like a big one. That's when I always have people like ask their doctors to run because that's just a good little like, is my body on fire? If it's on
And I think
fire.
anytime, not that I would necessarily change a lot, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
but I think anytime we can put some numbers to it and it's not just like, oh, Bailey said I'm probably got some inflammation, or Brianna said I probably have some inflammation. I think it helps just to have those numbers to be like, okay. And then you can see the improvements as you make changes.
And it's nice because I feel like that's motivating, you know? But the other thing is thinking about your cardiovascular system. So excess weight, specifically fat, affects the cardiovascular system mechanically and metabolically. So mechanic strain would simply be you need higher blood volume, increased cardiac output demand, and then left ventricular let me start over. Left ventricular Hypertrophy risk. The word hypertrophy is very hard for me to say. I, I hate it so much. But
A good
anyway,
one.
just thinking like your heart has to work harder. It's working harder. It's like a car, right? Like if you drive the car harder, it's going to break down more easily. So it's like that chronic stress that's not good. It's not stress that you're like adapting to when you like go work out and you're like running, you know. And then the metabolic strain would be that obesity drives dyslipidemia. So again, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, a lot of that lousy LDL, and then sometimes even lowers like the good cholesterol, which kind of just snowballs into being more at risk for damaging blood vessel lining, heart disease, that sort of thing. So, weight loss can reduce systolic and diastolic blood pressure. So, basically, a better blood pressure. You have a lower resting heart rate, improved endothelial function, and then reduces arterial stiffness. So, you want to be looking for lower triglycerides, lower ApoB, increased HDL. So, when I think HDL, you want it high, and then lowering LDL. LDL, L low, H high. That's all you gotta look for.
And even a shift to larger LDL particles. So we have small and we have large ones. Think about it like golf ball versus beach ball. Would you rather get hit in the head with a golf ball or a beach ball? Golf ball is going to hurt a little bit more. It's more dense. So we want more beach balls when it comes to LDL particles too. And then when we think about liver health, so we had an episode on MASLD, and excess fat stored in the liver leads to that metabolic dysfunction associated steatotic liver disease, aka MASLD. And that develops with insulin resistance, increasing fat mobilization, liver takes free fatty acids, fat accumulates, and this can progress in a way of like steatosis to steatohepatitis to fibrosis to cirrhosis. So when you lose weight, we're reducing that intrahepatic fat, so that liver fat.
Mm.
We're improving your liver enzymes, ALT and AST, and we're improving your liver and insulin sensitivity too. So a 5% weight loss can actually reduce liver fat, which is pretty cool. I mean, that's a good amount.
Yeah. The other thing is hormone regulation. So, fatty tissue is hormonally active. It's one reason why when women start going through menopause, they start storing a little bit more fat because they're making less hormones. So, your body's trying to compensate. So, some key hormonal disruptions would be like leptin resistance. So, leptin is the hormone that signals fullness. Like, I'm full, I don't need any more. It helps with appetite regulation. High body fat leads to chronically high leptin. And so your brain stops responding to it. So, hormones are just like little signalers. Anytime we start having a lot of it, our body goes, oh, like there's a lot of this floating around. We probably don't need to listen to it as much. And then it doesn't work. That's why, too high of insulin for too long, your body stops listening. So
Mm-hmm.
your brain stops.
So we can become like leptin resistant too.
Yes. And that's a big one for like people who are like, I have a lot of food noise. This could be why.
Mm-hmm.
So you're having leptin resistance. You just don't feel full. You feel hungry all the time. You're always thinking about food. So obviously, if you're more hungry, you're probably going to eat more. And that can be one reason why weight loss is a little bit difficult. And then you also have sex hormone disruption. So fat tissue contains aromatase. So it converts testosterone to estrogen, leads to low testosterone in men, estrogen dominance in women. And again, this could be a major contributor to why you're having weight loss resistance. And then cortisol. So visceral fat increases cortisol activity locally. So it worsens fat storage, especially around like the midsection. That's always, I feel like, the area that a lot of people, like a lot of women are like, I just want to get rid of it. A lot of that is cortisol driven. So weight loss effect would be improved leptin sensitivity, normalizing ghrelin signaling, so that hunger fullness, increasing testosterone, improving ovulation and menstrual cycle, and then reducing PCOS severity or like symptoms.
The next thing I would say is your musculoskeletal system. So your weight is going to affect biomechanics. So this is a lot of times where when we think about joints, like the load of your joints. So for every pound of body weight, knees experience 4 pounds, about 4.4 pounds of pressure while walking. Even more when you're running or like climbing stairs. So having extra weight is going to accelerate like cartilage wear, osteoarthritis, meniscus damage. And so we want to reduce like that joint compression, again, that less inflammatory cytokines, especially in that synovial fluid, which is the fluid between your joints, and have improved mobility and just like your gait, like your walk. Pain reduction often occurs before that large weight loss due to that inflammation reduction. And there are a lot of like joint injuries that are literally related to weight. Again, that is just a fact. That's not your doctor being mean, but it's just like it's putting extra weight on your body
Mhm.
that it can't support. Think about like, even if you held like 5 pounds above your head, eventually your shoulders are gonna get tired, especially if you're like going up and down, like lateral raises even. You could do that with 2 pounds and your shoulders are gonna get tired
Yeah.
because
Yeah. And a little caveat to this, because I had somebody ask me a couple months ago, well, like, well, then doesn't like putting on muscle like do that to my body too? Your body, this is the difference between fat and muscle. Your body is never going to put on more muscle than like your skeletal system can handle. It's just not. Whereas fat, you can continue to put on fat. And also, fat is inflammatory. So it's a little bit different. Also,
for
your
sure.
muscles are helping your skeletal system, whereas fat is not. So just like,
That's a good question.
yeah, because I had someone be like, well, isn't that just the same thing? Like, I don't want to put on muscle because my knees are going to hurt. It's different than fat. So caveat. But I mean, I was like, oh, that is like kind of a good question. The next would be sleep and respiratory. So obesity increases the risk of obstructive sleep apnea or OSA because fat deposits around your neck and it narrows your airway. Your tongue fat increases. And so you can have,
Isn't that crazy?
I know it's so crazy. You could have, which is why I always think about like pregnancy. I felt like my tongue was always swollen, but whatever. But that can lead to like airway collapse and then reduced lung volume when laying down. So this, OSA, obstructive sleep apnea, it's not good because then you're taking in less oxygen. So oxygen desaturation, you have frequent awakenings, your sympathetic nervous system activation. It's going to worsen blood pressure, worsen insulin resistance, worsen appetite hormones. So weight loss helps you reduce that airway obstruction. It improves oxygen saturation, then reduces apnea or hypnopia index. Basically, are you getting oxygen to your brain? So even modest weight loss reduction can help OSA severity. I will say, if you have sleep apnea, wear your CPAP machine because that is going to help all of this. If you're just constantly not getting good oxygen, you're not helping your insulin resistance, your appetite, like all of it's going to snowball into a worse effect. So even just wearing your CPAP machine can help you with weight loss.
And a lot of these things, it's again like that 10% weight loss, you will see the changes there.
Mm.
The next thing is cancer risk reduction. So, obesity contributes to cancer in a couple different ways, actually, due to having extra insulin is growth promoting. Inflammation causes DNA damage. We can have excess estrogen, which drives like breast and endometrial cancer. So, as you lose the weight, this is going to lower insulin, reduces your estrogen excess, and lowers inflammatory signaling. So, that risk and reoccurrence rate often drops.
Yeah. And this is where it's also important to know like the weight loss that we're talking about is not just like we're talking mostly fat loss
Yes.
because you can, and this is I think where the caveat is sometimes like when doctors will say like lose weight, your diabetes will get better, and then I'll have people who have lost weight and it hasn't gotten better, and that's because they lost all their muscle and they kind of like made it worse. So all of this weight we're talking about is reducing fat because that's
Because I mean, your doctor doesn't really care how you look. They're just trying to make your labs look better. And so we've just simplified it into calling it weight loss, where really we're focusing on the fat loss.
yeah. So caveat. And then the last one would be brain and cognitive health. So metabolic dysfunction affects the brain directly. We've talked about this as well with like type 3 diabetes, but insulin resistance in the brain. So it impairs glucose metabolism. Remember that your brain uses glucose. That's its main source of energy. It likes it. So if your brain is having a hard time using it, you're going to have atrophy. Your brain cells are going to be starved for like a lack of, that's a very simplified way. Like if you're a neurosurgeon listening to this, you're going to be like, what the heck did she just say? But we probably don't have a neurosurgeon. So that's cool. Regardless, your brain can't use sugar. And this is linked to Alzheimer's, AKA the type 3 diabetes like hypothesis. So Inflammation, cytokines can cross that blood-brain barrier. It promotes even more neurodegradation, reduces cerebral blood flow. So with weight loss, fat loss, you can have improved executive function, less brain fog, better memory, reduced neuroinflammation, and then improved brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. So exercise-related weight loss especially enhances neuroplasticity through a multitude of reasons, but exercise is good for your brain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Overall, what we want you to realize is that weight or fat loss improves health not simply just because you weigh less on the scale, but because it is changing your fat cell biology, your hormone signaling, your inflammatory load, your organ fat deposition or depositing, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
your vascular function, your brain metabolism. So it's like a full metabolic shift when you focus on fat loss, and especially when you focus on fat loss, number one, but number two, muscle gain.
Muscle gain.
That's where you're really gonna see these changes in these areas.
Mhm.
You're like I said, your doctor's not really concerned with how you look, and that's why they're telling you to lose weight. They're looking out for your metabolic health. So I know it can be annoying when you're constantly being told this, but there is a reason, and I think it is important to point these things out.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes they should be looking at your labs. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just looking at like the BMI chart and being like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you should do that." But really it's your labs that can be improving. And this is where I would also say if you're someone who's maybe you are your ideal body weight or you are a good BMI, but your labs are like out of whack, especially as you age, this is where it'd be interesting to get a DEXA to see like just how much visceral fat, that metabolically unhealthy fat do I have? Because maybe you're the quote unquote skinny fat where your
Yeah.
body weight looks okay, but your labs are saying a whole different story. I actually had someone in the hospital the other day, like her mom has like dementia and all this, and she's like very thin. And she's like, my mom's never been fat. Like, how did she get like dementia and diabetes? And I was like, well, there's probably signals along the way of like some red flags, labs going up, and maybe you just never paid attention to it, or maybe you just never got them, or you didn't know. But
You didn't know.
your metabolic health is very, very important. So, and this is also where I try to encourage people like, if a lot of these markers are out of whack, you may need to do some intensive interventions to kind of get them in line.
What I also want to point, like you were saying, like just because like these things occur doesn't mean you're overweight too. Like we're not saying like you can only get cancer if you're obese type of thing. We're also not saying you can cure cancer by not being obese. These are just kind of risk factors that come along with it and why there is an emphasis on weight loss or better yet the fat loss.
So,
Mhm.
look at the bigger picture. What is your body telling you? Looking under the hood, what's going on? We want to take all of these things into account. So, if you're someone who has gone to the doctor and they've told you to lose weight, but you're struggling to lose weight, now would be time to,
Now you know two people.
yeah, now would be a time to get some intervention with some people that can help you. Plug, shameless plug.
All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your week, and we will be back next week with a new topic.
Bye.
Bye.